things are not getting better at the moment at all. They're getting worse.
This is Tobias Temple-Smith, or Toby. He just graduated from Leeds University with a consulting role in hand, only for it to be taken away because of AI. Hear his story as we expose the raw macroeconomic reality of an entry-level workforce under siege in the UK.
My generation, who have spent their entire lives working hard, we've given it our all to try and get a job and see nothing from it. UK policymakers, I would want to tell them, we are trying to get a job and it's becoming increasingly impossible. You need to do something to actually solve the demand problem. And if you don't, this is going to be an existential crisis.
Morning, Toby. Welcome to the chair sessions. I've been really looking forward to our session, especially meeting you and talking about your experience. You are a fresh graduate coming out of college, university, going into the workplace, and I definitely would love to hear your experience. But before we do that, perhaps can you take a moment to tell the audience who you are?
Yeah, sure. Hello, nice to see you, Eric. Nice to be here. So my name's Toby. I, like you said, just finished university at Leeds. So I did an economics degree there. And essentially, like everyone else in my course, I've been applying to jobs to try and get a graduate role in place for September. I'd managed to get one. I applied to about 30, which is a very low number for my cohort. I applied to about 30 jobs and I managed to get one. So I stopped applying then. And so I had a graduate role set up in London in consulting, was really excited to go there, move in with my really good friend. And then about a month and a half ago, I get an email from the company saying that they'd rescinded my job offer due to rapidly evolving business requirements. And I thought, what does that mean? Going into consulting, I thought maybe the business cycle is just not very good for them. They've lost a few clients. So I called up, thought maybe I can try and persuade them, change their mind, or at least find out what's going on. And they told me that the reason they cut my job was because of AI. And it wasn't just me, they'd cancelled the entire graduate program. So yeah, I went on LinkedIn, I wrote a post about it, and I've been getting the message out since. I had a reporter come reach out to me. And yeah, I'm out here to talk about the experience of me personally, but also my generation and the economic impact that that's going to have on the UK and then also more broadly on the world as well.
I'm quite surprised that when you call them, they were actually quite candid with you as well, telling you point blank, it is because of AI that they have rescinded their job offer. How did that make you feel, when you hear that?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised to hear that as well. At least I guess I'm glad that they were honest with me about that. Maybe some companies aren't so honest about it because they think it's embarrassing or that they don't want that information to be out there. But it definitely was disappointing. But also I was kind of like, oh, of course. It seemed obvious. Like, why had I not considered that maybe AI was actually what was replacing me? Because we hear about it all the time. And if you look at the statistics and the macro level, we know that jobs are disappearing. But we can talk about that more.
Are you seeing the same thing happening all around you with your friends? What is actually happening on the ground? I'm trying to get a sense of what is actually happening.
Yeah, look, I'm not a sole case here at all, but of my friends, the vast majority have not managed to find jobs. Some have, but we're talking the creme de la creme, people making 150 applications. The average number of applications now for every role is 140. And just to put that in perspective, that's a hell of a lot more than it used to be. That's going up, and I think since the start of COVID or the launch of ChatGPT 2022, we've seen a 33% reduction in graduate roles in the UK. So this is a huge problem. On my personal experience, people basically have two options. You either go home and maybe try and get a temporary job, work in a bar, a cafe, or you extend your debt and you go apply for a master's. So it's the idea of we kind of stay in the student bubble, we just pretend it's not happening, and you just go and get into another £20,000 of debt. Meanwhile, the AI problem is actually just going to get worse while that's happening. So yeah, I'm not the only one. I have friends that have made over 200 applications and seen absolutely nothing, who are much smarter and more hardworking than me.
It's almost like a cycle, right? It almost also feels like the ground is being pulled underneath us. It's interesting you mentioned about getting a master's and pretending this doesn't happen, but at the same time, when you come out, you're meeting exactly the same. And as you mentioned, um, the graduate hires have decreased 8% year on year, and I think more of these trend is just going to continue. Now, if companies stop hiring juniors, what is going to happen to the career ladder? Are we witnessing literal erasure of the career ladder in front of us, in front of our eyes?
Yeah, I mean, it's an important point, and it's so short-sighted, right? Because as we all know, the first graduate roles are the first ladder to then becoming the manager, the director, leading that company. If we're not getting the experience at the start, then how are you supposed to actually get on that ladder and build a career? And those companies aren't thinking about that. In my case, their plan was, let's cancel the entire graduate program and we can reassess if we need to hire more people in the future. I mean, what happens in the long term there? And also, if you think about the fiscal element of it, the average median salary in the UK for a graduate that actually gets a graduate role is about £33,000. And it comes to around £5,000 of taxable income that's lost every year for that. So the government loses out £5,000 of income tax and national insurance. Then at the same time, the company is saving on corporation tax because AI is a business expense. So they're paying less tax. They're not hiring the person. The government's losing revenue there. And the money that's being paid into the AI is getting funneled to the US and data farms there and the billionaires that own them. So this is a huge, huge problem. The solution to which, or at least somebody has to pick up that tax bill, right? If the government's losing revenue on two different counts, somebody has to pay for that. So if you're someone that's in a safe job, thinking, "Oh, I'm fine. I don't really have to worry about this because I'm a managing director at a private equity firm or whatever it is," you should still care about this because ultimately you're going to have to pay for the increased tax, and it doesn't matter what party comes in next, whether it's Labour, Reform, Conservative, whatever. Someone's going to have to pay that tax bill.
I think it's not just about tax, right? It's also about a lot of unemployed people, and we are not even touching upon the social situations as well.
Yeah.
What do you think
the
about
social
that?
aspect.
Do you have any view? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, I can talk. I've talked about like the kind of economics of it and maybe the international impacts that has. But yeah, the social impact is huge as well. So for people, my generation who have spent their entire lives working hard, we've given it our all to try and get a job and seeing nothing from it. What happens? There's a concept in economics called hysteresis, which is borrowed from physics, and it's basically the idea that it's to do with interest rates. So it's a theory around neoclassical economics, and the idea is that if interest rates are raised, we raise interest rates when inflation's high to try and bring down inflation and cool the economy. Neoclassical economics says that has no long run impact on the economy because then eventually you can just rehire people when you need them. The post Keynesian school says something different. They say actually when people become unemployed for a long time, this has a long term impact on their employability, on their skills, and on their motivation. And I think that we're going to see the same thing with AI. So when all these young people are being forced out of work before they've even been able to get into it, they lose motivation, right? They aren't able to build those skills, and then it's going to be harder to get actually into the job market later on. It's not like we can solve this in 5 years' time. What do you think happens to people who've finished university and then spent 5 years living at home with their parents, unable to get a proper job that they've trained for?
Yeah. So yeah, that's literally what is happening on the ground, and that's super interesting that this is happening because there's also, from an economics point of view, when the consumer layer gets taken apart, even though there are productivity being managed by AI, but if there are no consumers because people cannot afford it, what is going to happen to the economy? That's another facet of our broader discussion. So it just seems like it starts with, I want to focus our discussion on the graduates coming out of university, but I think we can all agree that AI is impacting everyone, social, economics, so on and so forth, right? Maybe perhaps we get into the point you mentioned to me earlier about if you can't get a white collar job, go learn a trade. I know you have very strong points about that. Go be a
I
plumber
do.
or go be an electrician. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I've heard that too many times to count, and it really, I don't know, I don't know if I can swear, but it annoys me. Let's say that. It really annoys me when people
Yeah.
say that, because it's so short-sighted and it's a complete dismissal of the problem. So when someone says, "Oh, forget trying to get a job in the city, just go and learn a trade," that's AI proof. It's a ridiculous thing to propose, because we have 500,000 graduates a year in this country. What do you think happens if 500,000 graduates all go to their local college and try and get a plumbing qualification there? Even if the local colleges could somehow handle that insane influx, which obviously they would not be able to, then what happens when they hit the market? You're going to have 10,000 18 to 24-year-olds in your local area that are all competing to fix your plumbing, to fix your boiler. It's a ridiculous suggestion. It won't work. Now, maybe you can argue that with the government wanting more house building to happen in this country, yes, maybe some people can go into that, but it's far from a solution to the actual problem.
You end up with 500,000, 500,000 plumbers and very clean pipes. So
Yeah.
that part I'm with you. When I hear that as well, I also get quite annoyed. Why do you think those people make that suggestion? Because we hear these suggestions from some really smart and high level people as well. Why do you think they say that?
Well, the way I see it is that often when there are problems, people just repeat the same solutions, right? They hear things and they just assume that will work. You hear the same thing when people criticize young people for the cost of living crisis. They hear young people say we're struggling to live financially, and people will just say, "Oh, just cut your Netflix subscription and buy less avocados." It has the same ring to it. It's not thought through properly, because if you think about it for 5 seconds, then you'll realize it's not a solution. As to the people who are smarter, like you say, and still suggesting that, I don't know. Perhaps they may be smart, but just haven't really thought too much into that specific problem.
You think maybe it could just be something to say to appease the crowds
Yeah,
in a lack
I,
of
I think
real solution?
I think that's also possible. Yeah, if they want to just kind of make yeah, just appease us, pacify us. But ultimately, that's not going to work in the long run, because this problem is only going to get worse. And if you just tell people to go and learn a trade, it's not going to work. You're going to have more and more people unemployed, competing down to the penny to try and get anything, and it's going to turn really bad.
Perhaps that's also why we hear the narrative in Silicon Valley yo-yoing around, ding-donging around. On one hand, they say, oh, it's going to, even the tech giants, the CEOs come out and say, yes, it's going to eliminate jobs. And a half year later, same person coming out and say, you know what, no, it's going to create new jobs. No can basically not agree on a single narrative. That's perhaps it, right? But if the speed of elimination is nowhere near the velocity of the entry level elimination, so I'm just
Yeah,
struggling to see a holistic picture of actually what's happening, which is why in a country like UK, where they are, I think the statistics are more robust, where it says that the youth unemployment rates, I think I read also there are 1 million needs, you call it, not in education, employment, or training, 1
that's
million
right.
of them.
Yeah.
You have clearer numbers. So there is a clearer idea of the situation versus, I'm sure, many of the countries as well. Are you seeing any of these new roles being created on the ground?
Well, look, the reality right now is that, like I said, since the launch of ChatGPT, the number of graduate roles has decreased 33%. And I think this idea about the new roles is kind of another one of these short-sighted arguments. I saw the managing director for artificial intelligence at Google for a mayor at a talk a few months ago, and he made the same point. He said, when the Industrial Revolution happened, there was change, but then eventually everyone became employed again. And it's this idea that we moved from fields into factories, and it's new job creation, and not stagnation. There's a couple of problems with that. One you hinted at was the idea of the speed of it, right? So this is happening far, far faster than the Industrial Revolution did. So the idea that, and like linked into the hysteresis point I made, that we can just accept 10 years, let's say, or 15 years when all of our young people are unemployed and not working, with that, the problems that brings with the skills ladder, you can't just allow millions of people to be unemployed for a decade while we try and transition to new jobs. The second point is this, and this is the more important one. The Industrial Revolution moved us from fields into factories, and it took what took 100 people to do one field, took one man in a tractor. Okay. So that replaced largely physical labor. So what happened then? Okay, so post-industrial revolution, the UK at least moves to a service sector economy. So we are selling our brains, our brain power, right? What's this doing? What's the AI revolution doing? It's now replacing the brain power. So what comes after that? We've lost the physical to the industrial revolution. Now we're replacing our cognitive thought. So it's like when we talk about this new job creation, we need to really think about on a macro level, what do we actually mean by that? What are those jobs going to be? And I don't know what the answer is.
I'm 100% with you because it's different. This time is different, right? You cannot be comparing this with the first, second, or third industrial revolution because the velocity and the magnitude of it is just different. Going back to the point about coming up with solutions. Remember 3 years ago, also the smart people are saying go learn coding, right? What happened to those people, those kids who heeded that advice and said, you know what, AI era is coming, I'm going to learn coding? None of those have a job now because that is ill-advised. I can do that for you very, very cheaply. I'm just trying to get to the sense of, some kind of clarity that what young people can actually do now, across the world. Or let's not even go there. Let's start with, where you are in the UK. What can you do?
I mean, I feel bad for people that have done computer science degrees, for sure. Because, I was one of those people that was told, go learn to code. I have a couple of coders in my family, and it's moving so fast, it's completely impossible to keep up. So that's definitely getting replaced. What can I do right now? I mean, I'm still looking for jobs. So I'm really fortunate that my name has been out there, and I've had a couple of people reaching out to me. But I'm just one person out of 500,000 graduates in my year. So my situation is different to normal, but I still don't have anything guaranteed, and I'm still looking. For others, like I say, it's either you stay in uni and you get into more debt, or you just have to go and live at home. And that's quite a sad thing, really, because people my age, we want to be living independently, going and renting our own place. But for so many other reasons, we talk about student debt for one thing in this country, that's just becoming increasingly impossible.
Doesn't that feel very reactive and just waiting around where your future is not in your own hands? I think we need more people, more youth voices like you speaking up on the matter. Is anyone speaking to in a wider context to the government or the lobbies on finding actually real structural and policy solutions to all this? Of course, there's also a lot of political developments, let's just say, in the UK at the moment with the change of prime minister and all the kind of thing. They probably have a lot of other issues to be thinking about. But the youth is the future, and you are one voice talking about this. And that's actually how I found you. I think there's probably more people who needs to talk about and see how to solve this thing collectively. Is that not the case?
There's certainly not enough conversations happening. That's for sure. And like you mentioned, with Andy Burnham almost certainly coming in as Prime Minister in a couple of weeks, perhaps that will be a change that will allow for something different. We shall see. I mean, I know that with the Alan Milburn report that came out fairly recently, that was where that 1 million NEETs figure came from. That's led to a couple of suggestions or policies from the current government. One of which is a youth kind of bursary, youth guarantee bursary, youth job guarantee is what they call it. So it's giving £3,000 to companies that employ people who've 18 to 24 who've been unemployed for more than 6 months, which does something, but they think it's only going to help 60,000 people within the next 3 years. And I don't really think it goes anywhere near far enough. They're also talking about the idea of having a job market help tool in your pocket. It's launching a kind of AI job tool helper, which is ridiculous, because the problem is not that we aren't able to apply to jobs. We're already applying to 140 places for every place, right? So the idea that if we can just give people an AI helper that will help them improve their CV and apply to more jobs, is only going to spur the problem on. We need to actually solve the demand side issue, the fact that the number of jobs are going down, and the current solutions that the government are putting forward are not going to do that in any meaningful way at all.
Now let's talk about the demand side then, right? Right now, the AI power is concentrated in the US as well as maybe in Asia is China. I see the two big digital divides. All the either computing power or wealth is very, very quickly, as everyone uses ChatGPT, Claude, or even Gemini. As we continue to buy tokens, it's just increasingly being channeled there. Now, I think there is also a big conversation where a lot of policymakers or even in the business world are waking up to this fact. What is UK's AI scene? Is there actually any companies that are coming up or making a name in itself where you're building AI for your own country? If you if you can't beat them, join them kind of solution. Right now, there is none.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. No, we certainly don't really have any sovereignty over our use of AI. And like you say, that money is being funneled abroad, and that's a structural problem for our international balance sheets that's only going to continue to grow and grow and grow. So if we don't find a way to either build AI ourselves, I mean, that's obviously a conversation that's being had, but not much is happening, and I think probably we've missed the boat in many senses.
So in terms of the solutions in the UK, I see that BBC is very, very active in terms of bringing up these solutions. In fact, on YouTube, they are one of the most active in terms of talking about what we are talking about at the moment and wider, right? Constantly, even on a daily basis, there is a specific AI channel. Now, why is there still not enough movement or momentum in the UK, seeing that even the BBC is so actively talking about this? There was a roundtable I saw about a month ago where you had, your ruling party as well as the opposition party. I can't remember who they are, along with, a couple of scholars as well as people who are in the AI world talking about these issues, and they are talking about the exact issues we are talking about now, not to mention young people and youth in the audience talking about this. Now, why is it still so difficult in the UK to really find some sort of movement to get some progress? Because what I hear from you is we are just waiting and hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, we're still definitely in the declining phase. Things are not getting better at the moment at all. They're getting worse, quite clearly. I think, obviously things are just slow to move. They're slow to actually get a plan together, and we need to wake up because this is happening so fast. I mean, it's only a couple of years ago that we really got access to AI in the first place as general consumers, and now people are being replaced. And yeah, we're not fast enough. I've just finished university at Leeds. There, we've already got our delivery drivers being replaced. So, and this is, we're late to the party in some sense. We have robots that go around the city, and we're not the only city in the UK now. And they've replaced delivery drivers. So yeah, this is happening really fast. We need to actually wake up and we need to move.
Transportation is one of the areas where a lot of people are being employed, whether it's taxi drivers or even lorry drivers, truck drivers, logistics, and that is increasingly very, very quickly getting replaced. As I'm sitting in San Francisco at the moment, on a daily basis, I see Waymos and cars without any drivers going all around. There's just a little bit of a sense of a future happening in San Francisco, where you feel that. So the future is here. Definitely it's impacting everything we do on a daily basis. So drivers definitely are one of the earliest to be replaced, right? And I think it really remains to see how this is going to improve. I just hope that more people will see our video, even your first video, your first interview, with the Times, I think it was, and get the word out there. And hopefully, you can rally among yourselves to find a solution, see what, other countries are doing, because we are all in this together, I feel. For a lack of a solution, I really can't see a clear, nice future ahead for all of us. It may sound very bleak, and I don't really want to end the video on a very bleak note, but I'm not hearing any real solutions, honestly.
Neither am I. Neither am I. I mean, I'm aware that other countries are doing more than the UK. Some take a more extreme approach. I believe that Beijing just recently outlawed replacing workers with AI. So they've made it illegal to outwardly replace someone with the AI. That's one interesting approach. I haven't thought very much about what that would mean for the UK. There's other options, ones that involve Bergovian taxes, something that maybe mirrors a carbon tax, and you've got problems about investment and conversations about, is that going to drive businesses away from the UK? I personally don't think so. But yeah, we certainly need to be having this conversation more and actually talking about real solutions that don't just put the blame on young people and saying, oh, well, you just need to apply to more jobs, and don't say they should just be a plumber instead. Actually talking about solving the demand crisis that we have. The number of jobs are going down, the number of graduates graduating each year is staying the same, if not going up. And it's not going to lead anywhere that we want it to go, unless we do something soon.
Yeah. If this video is being seen by any policymakers in the UK, you never know. Is there any question or anything you want to tell them?
UK policymakers, I would want to tell them, we are trying to get a job. Hopefully you can see that we want to be employed, and it's becoming increasingly impossible. You need to do something to actually solve the demand problem. And if you don't, this is going to be an existential crisis.
For all of us, not just for the
For all of us, not just for the youth as well. And it affects everyone in the country, all the people that have to house those children and the people that have to pick up the resulting tax bill.
Totally. I think that is the key message here. You may seem that the youth is facing this, but in the not even longer run, in the midterm, it affects all of us due to the points that we've raised in this conversation about tax, about social implications, about everything. There's just going to be issues that's going to affect all levels of society. Yeah. Toby, it's been a pleasure talking to you. But before we end, I just wanted to end with, is there anything that we should have been talking about that we haven't raised? Hello?
I think apart from the fiscal catastrophe, what we haven't talked about is really properly what the actual solution could be. And I think more deep conversations need to be had around actually, if we did want to put a tax on AI of some kind, how would that work? How do we actually solve the demand side problem? Because nobody's talking about it. And I don't have the answer yet. I may not be the person to come up with that solution, but that conversation needs to happen, and it's not. So that's the main thing that I would say needs to be talked about.
We still come back to the solutions, huh? Yeah. But again, Toby, what got you to me was your interview. So you never underestimate the power of one person. It needs to start somewhere before the conversation gets bigger and bigger. The reason why I wanted to get you on is because I believe that the voices of the youth is critical in this matter. Rather than you see a lot of people, policymakers or even the grown-ups, having conversations where the youth is not even at the table. That's why I want to hear directly from you, where it is your future. You definitely, deserve to have a seat on the table. You deserve a much bigger voice in terms of really talking about this. I believe.
Well, thank you so much for having me on and giving the opportunity to put this message out there, because it is so important and it's only going to get worse if we don't do something. So yeah, really appreciate it. It's been great talking to you.
Great conversation, Toby. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Guys, if you found the episode useful, please subscribe, and I'll find more speakers like that to talk about all the various issues surrounding AI.